let me just get quick thoughts from Godfred. It's about the seventh time we've seen at the FIFA Club World Cup tournaments that games have had to be halted. Uh, some coaches not too happy with the weather condition. Maresca, the latest coach to react to the weather concerns in Charlotte. Just you are there. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think that there's a bit of also a cultural difference here that is creating problems. So the way Europeans are used to assimilating weather during games is very different. So for those who watch the Serie A or who would watch the English Premier League or the French League, it would take a certain level of deluge or rainfall, as you would say, for a game to be halted, for us to say the pitch is unplayable. However, culturally here, if they say a weather warning, basically they would have to take you off because of the fear of lightning.
Yeah.
Now, if you check your data, you would realize that there are more lightning strikes in this part of the world than you would find in the UK. So they basically do not want to take the risk of putting very expensive insured human beings on the park to play football at the risk of somebody getting hit by lightning,
Yeah.
even if the likelihood of it happening is just 10%. Nobody's willing to take that risk. So for them, once there is a clear indication of that, they are taking you off the pitch until they are sure. But that hasn't happened at the games where the stadiums are covered, and there have been quite a few of those. So, like in Atlanta, the stadium is covered. I think if you
I think the ongoing game between Flamengo and Bayern Munich, they had a covered stadium.
Yes, and I think we'll see a lot more of that at the World Cup, where a lot of people also have this confused. Some of the venues that are hosting the Club World Cup are not World Cup venues. There are only about so for this particular tournament, only about 5 of the venues are World Cup venues. So you have Seattle, you have MetLife, you have Hard Rock, you have Atlanta, and then you have the one in New Jersey where the final or semi-final will be played. Those are official World Cup stadiums. Now, all those are coverable. So by the time the World Cup comes, I think that we would see that most of the stadiums that will be used are stadiums that can survive this kind of situation. But I can understand the frustration of the coaches who are coming from Europe because, like Maresca rightly said, you've had players warm up. They played a game to 84 minutes or 85 minutes. It takes, if they go inside the dressing room for 2 hours, they've warmed down, they've lost concentration, their bodies respond differently. So coming out there and expecting them to perform at a certain level, you are exposing them to certain levels of injury, you are exposing them to certain level of underperformance. So those concerns are clearly justified, but I also think there's also just a bit of a culture shock for those who are coming in from Europe and those who are used to watching football here. For them, this would be very regular. The reason why this would make big news is the European teams are obviously the marquee attractions at this tournament. And so anytime it happens, Chelsea is on the pitch. Anytime it happens, Bayern Munich is on the pitch. Anytime it happens, Real Madrid is on the pitch. It will certainly generate attention because these are the biggest football brands globally. It will generate that kind of attention, Gabriel.
Godfrey, just quick thoughts on the recent comment from Jurgen Klopp and Sky Sports' Kavi Solikol. So Klopp said that, look, he's not too happy with the idea of having this tournament. Kavi has replied, Klopp. He says, if you don't want to watch the tournament, find some Netflix, get some popcorn, walk your dog at the beach and stuff. Like these are, I find it very funny, but they are heavy statements from Jurgen Klopp on why this competition is in session. And one other thing that I find it very funny is that his own team, that's Red Bull Salzburg, competed at the tournaments. They got knocked out by Madrid. They pocketed some cash. But here is somebody who is the head of that particular club talking about why FIFA are holding this tournament and the injury risks that it gives to these players. I don't know where you stand on that.
Well, look, I think it's a reality that most modern sports will have to come to. And it's interesting that Jurgen Klopp, for instance, referenced basketball. Basketball players in the NBA are calling for shorter seasons because they're saying they are playing way more games. But here's the thing. Basketball has never been wealthier than it is now. Players have never been wealthier than they are now. If you ask a player whether he's willing to take less money for a longer career, the players will tell you, no, pay me more. So it's the same thing that is being reflected in football. Football has become more expensive. The world generally has become more expensive. Paying for players has become more expensive. Maintaining the best talent in terms of retention, talent retention, has become more expensive. Clubs need to find different streams of revenue. The only way they will tell you they find different streams of revenue, playing matches where they get money at the gates, and then broadcast rights from playing in tournaments like this, and then appearance fees from playing in tournaments like this. That is the way that they maximize revenue so that they are able to afford some of the salaries and wages that naturally has come about because of just the general economic order. So I do understand the situation with players thinking that they are playing too much. I share that concern. I think that it's something that we need to look at because more and more we are finding that players are suffering, careers are becoming shorter. We are realizing that injuries are becoming a lot more serious. The spaces between them are also becoming shorter when it comes to injuries. But let us not be put our heads in the sand. Let us not be ostriches and say that we are not aware of the fact that these are players who are asking for millions of dollars at the end of the year in terms of salary. And the question must be asked, how do you expect the teams to afford this? You want to be paid 20 million, you have to pay games that bring in 20 million. That is the only way that this cycle is going to work. So I think in the end, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge is the one who stands in the middle of this argument, former Bayern Munich president, who says that, look, a conversation can be had. If you want us to play less games, let's discuss it. Are you willing to take less money as well? Then the clubs will be able to say we can afford it. Other than that, it's a crossroads for the game. And it's, like I said, it's not just happening in football, it's happening in almost all the major sports across the world. Even if you look at track and field, for instance, they are trying to even get more events on the calendar because they are saying the athletes are underpaid, which is why Michael Johnson's Grand Prix is coming on and all those things. Everybody is looking for ways to maximize revenue in the world that we live in. And unfortunately, football is not any different. It just becomes more apparent because it is the most popular sport on planet Earth. So everybody will notice.
Godfred,
Cup competitions, whatever. The group stages were a bit mixed because then you have teams of very different strengths facing each other. So some were a bit lopsided. But the knockout games, I must admit, have been a lot more interesting, a lot more competitive. But the European teams obviously have superior talent at their disposal. They have deeper squads, which is what has seen them overcome the South Americans in some of the more interesting games that we've seen. But also, let's admit, there are more European teams. So you are likely to have more European teams survive than South American teams. There are twice as many European teams as there are South American teams. So it's very likely that we are going to have a knockout stage that is dominated by the European superpowers, as it is, by virtue of the deeper squads they have. But I have enjoyed most of the games. Today I was at the Inter Miami
PSG game.
PSG game. It was the first half was that the first half was pretty disappointing. It was like a walk in the park. The quality gap between the two teams was night and day. It was night and day, and that's why the game has become expensive. If you look at the bench of Paris Saint-Germain, the bench of Paris Saint-Germain would basically still beat Inter Miami 4-0. It was not going to change the scoreline.
I saw your tweet about Luis Enrique introducing Ousmane Dembele, and you were surprised at that decision.
Your team is 4-0 up, and you're introducing the presumptive winner of the best player award.
He's in a Ballon d'Or conversation, so he has to do that
into the game. Like, how much more heartbreaking can that get? So generally, I just feel the quality has been good. But let me just add this. I've seen a lot of comments about like things that are a bit different. Look, the fun, and that was for me one of the most important things. Getting to feel this tournament as a fan rather than a journalist, because all the tournaments that I've covered, I covered as a journalist. But I wanted to experience what fans experience, And look, for the fans, this has been a great experience. Those watching behind TV, a TV experience is very different from an in-game experience. For those who have attended the games themselves, at the venues that I have been, at least for them, it's been an absolutely brilliant experience. They've enjoyed the games. They've enjoyed the atmosphere that has been created. And I do think that we will see a lot more people for the World Cup. I've seen the comments about the crowds and whatnot. Here's the thing. If we're honest about ourselves, we've seen World Cup matches. If we played Slovakia versus Peru in a 60,000 seater stadium anywhere in the world, would the stadium be full? No. So
yeah,
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
In the AFCONs. We've seen Mauritius versus Comoros. Even in 20,000 seater stadiums, they are not full. It is when the games get to the competitive stages where the countries that have the resources and the numbers, that is when you see the large crowds. And I think we saw that reflected in this. So I wasn't really concerned when in the opening stages people were talking about, oh, where are the fans? But I also heard Kwame and your other panelists also admit the fact that, look, Kwache,
yeah,
some of the South Americans showed up. Look, Boca Juniors brought 40,000. 40,000.
The tournament didn't take on personal, Charlie.
Yes. Boca Juniors Esperance brought a lot of fans to this stadium. So I think by and large, they've done well for themselves. It is up to those who are selling to market to the neutrals to get more of them in. But by and by, I think, look, today, Inter Miami versus PSG was in one of the largest stadiums in North America, the Mercedes-Benz Arena. Inter Miami come from Miami. Paris Saint-Germain come from France. 78,000. Today we had about 60,000 people in the stadium. You can't say that is bad. In a stadium that is very neutral to both teams. So I think people should just enjoy the football. It's been fun. It's ongoing. But the Europeans will dominate this, as we know they will. We will see who wins. Thank you.
All right, Godfred, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and thank you for doing this with us today on Scorecard.